Paul Donovan, Deputy Head for Global Economics at UBS, joins us now for more on this. Hi, Paul. I suppose events in Brussels have been overshadowed by events in New York in the last 48 or so hours. How does Strauss-Kahn's absence affect negotiations, particularly when it comes to Greece?
Well, directly, of course, the IMF is saying this, it's an institution, it's not an individual, and all of that's true. But what I think this is doing is emphasising to financial markets the risks around the euro at the moment. Markets have been quite complacent about the risks surrounding the euro, and now they're being reminded very forcibly about how delicate a balance this is. We've got the issue with the IMF and losing a potential supporter for Greece and a bailout. We've got the issues going on in Germany at the moment. It's just a reminder of risks at a time when, frankly, the euro was trying to hush up the risks as much as possible.
Strauss-Kahn, it's said, was a good buffer between Greece and the northern Europeans. Is that an accurate description of his role in the last year's events between Greece, Portugal and so on, particularly Greece and the northern Europeans?
I think up to a point. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I think most politicians in Europe realise that European unity is very important, that they've got to make this thing work somehow. I think that's generally understood by senior political leaders. But Strauss-Kahn, I think, was somebody who also, a big believer in the European ideal, was certainly helping push that and reminding people, look, you've got to make this thing work. So to that extent, he's a supporter. Having said that, I think the rest of the senior IMF officials, the deputy managing directors, are very much aware of how important European unity is at this very difficult time.
So what are we going to get from this EU finance ministers meeting later? I mean, will there be some sort of announcement? Will there be some sort of official statement? Yes, we're going to help Greece, but there'll be conditions attached?
As far as Greece is concerned, that's not clear. I mean, the first thing to do is we've got to bail out Portugal. I mean, one crisis at a time. Portugal must be sorted out because by the middle of next month, they've literally run out of money.
Right.
Greece is not in that situation. Greece has still got some cash left over from the last bailout. That can keep it ticking over for a while. So there isn't the urgency about Greece. Portugal's where we've got to get the sort out.
Number one,
yeah. There's also Ireland as well. I mean, we're not short of crisis in Europe. I mean, there's plenty to look at. Ireland wants lower interest rates. Ireland, frankly, deserves lower interest rates.
Get lower interest rates?
I hope so. I certainly hope so. And I think a cut in interest rates would really make a difference for Ireland. Announcing that around the same time as you come up with the details of the Portuguese bailout, that would be very helpful. Then we can start worrying about Greece. The thing is there that Greece doesn't have the urgency. They can get along until next year. And in many ways, it might be easier for them to look at restructuring or reconstituting the debt next year rather than this year, just because more of the debt will be in public ownership next year. More of it will be owned by the ECB, the IMF and the European governments next year.
And if all that wasn't enough to talk about, the small matter of who's going to replace Jean-Claude Trichet. I mean, Mr. Draghi's in the hot seat, obviously, isn't he?
Yes, and I think, frankly, he is a very, very good qualified candidate. I mean, he is Italian. That is a problem with the German electorate, but I don't think it's an insurmountable problem now. Certainly, Angela Merkel's government seems to be a lot more supportive. That's giving some momentum to his candidacy. But I think he'd be a very good ECB president to replace Trichet.
Meanwhile, Angela Merkel, she's desperately trying to ward off and balance domestic issues, particularly her junior coalition partners. Is she going to manage to sort of balance things at home in Germany?
I think ultimately, yes. I think that we perhaps underestimate that the German population as a whole are pro-European. They're not particularly pro-bailouts and so on and so forth, but ultimately they're pro-European. And so what's happening is the German government keeps having to go to the population saying, look, we've got to make this small compromise, we've got to move this small step forwards, the alternative is chaos. Eventually, I think the German population will come on board with that, but it's going to be a rough ride for Merkel, there's no question.
Paul, thank you very much indeed. Paul Donovan there from UBS.